Hello everyone, yesterday you saw a bunch of us creators talking about what we have really enjoyed in 2021. Now let's look ahead at the year to come, and I've got 22 board games. Mostly, there's a couple of expansions on the list that I am really looking forward to this year. It's 2022 and here's 22 games to look forward to. There is no particular order here, but I'm just going to jump in and talk about these games, and hopefully there'll be some that you've heard of, some you won't, and some you can maybe look forward to yourself. Now let's jump in. First of all is My City, the roll and write. So My City was a flip and write game, a legacy flip and write game. Not too many of those done. There's now Welcome to the Moon, which has sort of a campaign, but it was a really chilled vibed game. You were just turning the card over, adding that shape onto your sort of board, trying to avoid trees, cover up rocks, and then slowly but surely other things like wells and train tracks got added. It was a really good experience. I'd recommend that a lot. And My City roll and write, well, you know, if it follows the same sort of logics of a nice chilled game, I'd certainly be willing to give this one a go. There's not too much information about it, but Cosmos have obviously announced it, and it could easily work. It was a flip and write. A roll and write seems a very sort of adjacent move. Happy to try this one, and I hope there's maybe even at least a hint of that legaciness, of maybe something changing from one to another. I'm not sure it will, but we can hope. Next up is a game for me, because I am a huge fan of The Warriors, the film from 1989 I think it was, and this game, there was one previously that they tried to kickstart, but The Warriors come out to play from Funko Games. Funko Games, they have been treating IPs with a good amount of respect. They're not just slapping on these themes, which is a really nice thing to see. You've got all of these character standees. If I can get a picture, I mean, look at that. I mean, stunning picture. You're actually trying to work your way down the board. You're trying to get back to Coney Island. I love that. They've taken that perfectly from the film. There's dice and stuff. I'm not always too much of a fan of dice, although I like roll and writes. But dice, when there's combat, sometimes, you know, you feel screwed over. I'll still definitely give this one a game because I absolutely love The Warriors. So this is a must play for me. From some of the top 5 and 10 lists on the channel, you'll probably have seen that I am a fan of Love Letter. I wasn't a huge fan of the the Marvel version, but they are going to be releasing a Star Wars version, and you know, it's Star Wars, it's Love Letter. I'm going to have to give this one a go. Jabba's Palace is the name. It's very much being sold as Star Wars Jabba's Palace rather than a Love Letter game. You know, some of the old ones like Love Letter Batman was very much a Love Letter game first. This seems to be taking the sort of logics. It's coming in that small packaging. It's got all the numbered cards. They have some abilities, but there seems to be some sort of event cards that, you know, for that round makes it slightly different. So maybe not at the end of the round, it's not the who's got the highest card value. It's maybe who's played the most of a certain faction down in front of them. Just a different way to spice things up. And, you know, it's got Boba Fett, it's got Jabba the Hutt, it's got some of the big names in it. Very excited for this one, just purely from a Love Letter and Star Wars sort of perspective. It's crossing and smashing up two amazing things to me. Next up is a game that I was half a fan of, the original Guards of Atlantis. I liked it. I love MOBAs. I've got thousands of hours on Dota 2, one of the big MOBAs on PC. And this is, you know, it's supposedly MOBAs in a board game. If you're not sort of aware of what a MOBA is, it's a multiplayer online battle arena. You know, nearly forgot that there. It's effectively two teams. In this game you can play it as 1 versus 1, or you can play teams, and you're moving your characters, defeating creeps basically, and trying to push the enemy back and destroy their base effectively. That's what the game sort of crux is on. You can level characters up in the original, and that was a really cool system, but I found when you got so far in Guards of Atlantis, it felt like everyone was top level, and then something happened. There wasn't, you got to there and then everyone plateaued and eventually someone won. You could get a bit of a stalemate. I just wish that there was something big and epic at the top of that spectrum to be like, right, who gets there first? Who's going to take that hit? I really enjoyed the concept of Guards of Atlantis, and I just hope they sort of really elevate it all in Guards of Atlantis 2. And I'll just have a quick look at some of the pictures, because it's quite an exciting idea. These are, from the looks of things, some of the heroes that you can play as, and their decks of cards are obviously going to be quite different, some wanting melee and ranged and stuff like that. So yeah, very exciting to give this one a go. Now moving on to one of the expansions on my list, because Colt Express is such a phenomenal game, an expansion for it which adds another train, I am literally on board, just because it's a game all about that chaos, not quite sure knowing where other people are, and if someone can jump to another train and things like that, it's only going to get more hectic. The big box for Colt Express has come out before this expansion, so interested to know how they're doing that, or if it doesn't fit in, it does fit in. But like I say, the whole game works on the amount of chaos, and having a second train, it's just gonna be absolutely mind-blowingly awesome. Cannot wait to give this one a go, even if the second train will kind of make my playmat for Colt Express look a bit silly. Next up is a game I don't know if it will come out in 2022. We have just had Terraforming Mars Arkeis Expedition. I'm a huge fan of the original. I think Arkeis Expedition was a nice sort of sidestep. It's not quite reaching the heights and the grandness of the original. I love the board and building that out. But it was a nice sort of using some common logics but putting a spin on it. And I think the dice game could too. It's been rumoured for a long time, and on Board Game Geek it is down as a 2022 release. That doesn't mean much, but with the option to do the same sort of things, rolling certain dice, it could work. It could be an enjoyable roll fest basically. If it's Terraforming Mars, I'm going to be interested, and I'd like to see how they adapted it. Certainly after Arkeis Expedition. That was a nice Terraforming Mars game that felt quite different, and I think they could do a Terraforming Mars game with dice, and it would again be interesting to play. Hopefully we at least hear about this game more this year, but I do hope it comes out too. Next up is Marvel Dice Throne. Now this is a game for, complete transparency. I have backed this on Kickstarter. I am very excited about this coming. Marvel is huge right now. Love all of the films. Love all of the Disney Plus series. And the fact that we're going to get some of the iconic characters in this Yahtzee style dice rolling game. I know earlier I said I don't like rolling dice. I kind of don't mind it sometimes when that is what the game is about, and it's not, necessarily tripping you up as part of a game. This is all about just rolling dice quickly, not too long, not taking too long about your turns or the whole game length. I have played Dice Throne and I did enjoy it. I just think that fell down for me a little bit because it didn't really grab me, and I think the theme of Marvel, the Marvel theme on Dice Throne, that's capturing me. I'm interested, and it will certainly interest a lot of people at the table, so I'm super excited for this one. Next up we have Paint the Roses. Now I actually played this with some of the team on Tabletop Simulator, and I had a lot of fun. I wouldn't know if fun's the right word for most people though. It is a hell of a puzzle. and it looks stunning as well. Obviously, I've only played it on Tabletop Simulator, but looking at the components, they've really done a brilliant, amazing job to make this stand out. Because what it effectively is a spatial puzzle. You've got certain things that you need to do, and other people need to know guess that's what you're trying to do, if that makes sense. So when you're placing one of these tiles down, you are giving hints as to if your card is correct or done via those placements. So if we have a look at the board here, say this space here at the top, that's always filled in. If I was to place next to it with a spade, now I would then say that if my card says 2 spades next to each other, I would say yes, that is achieving this rule once. Now there are other tiles next to it, so it's not perfect information, but you can slowly start to work out via where people have placed tiles and what they've placed, what they're doing, and it's an absolute brain melter of a puzzle. But if you can get past that first play, or maybe first couple of plays, I can see it really vibing with groups that just want to really hone in on that puzzle. So this would probably be that puzzle game for you this year. A little bit of a spoiler, I did mention 2 games in the Best of 2021 video, and one of those was the Unmatched system. And there's a lot of boxes on the way in 2022. So we have Hell's Kitchen, which this is awesome that they're getting that Marvel brand in, but using lesser known characters. So from this box, I'm not too common. I don't know too much about Bullseye or Electra, but Daredevil. We know that, or I know that from like the TV series, and obviously Matt Murdock popping up again recently, as well as the old films that weren't quite as good. But there's many, many more. There's a Jurassic Park box on the way. There is another Marvel box with Luke Cage, Ghost Rider, and Moon Knight. Now I know more of those, so I'm excited a bit more for that box. Again, interesting. That this box is only a 3 hero. The rest have either been 4, 2 or a 1, so both of those were 3s. And on the box, I don't know if you can see it there, I'll just try and zoom in, it says players 2 to 3. Now all of the rest of the rulebooks for Unmatched have been 2 or 4 players. I think you could probably get away with 3 in terms of one person had to play 2 heroes and it would still work, but it was always 2 characters or 4 characters. So this sounds like to me a way they've built into the rule system, potentially, pure guess here, a way to do 1 versus 1 versus 1, and I'm excited by that. Or if not, it's a 1 versus 2, and again, excited to see how that comes about in this box. But we're not done on Unmatched, because there's also a Houdini versus the Genie, which is a brilliant matchup. No picture there yet. And we'll come back to that one. There is Teen Spirit, which there's very little information, but it says Miss Marvel, Squirrel Girl, and the team of Cloak and Dagger. I don't really know much about those characters, but I do know like Miss Marvel is coming soon in the MCU. So again, more excitement on the Marvel hype train. And then I just had to mention this one when I found it. The Brothers Murph unofficial set, which has the blessing of Restoration Games. That's an awesome thing. So all of those Unmatched in one thing. That is one thing for 2022. Now on with the next. Tokaido was a really fun game, and Namiji is going to be the sequel. Now, I have actually played this game when it was back in a prototype form, and to be honest, it looks like it was ready to come out maybe a year or 2 ago. I think it was at UK Games Expo or Essen or one of those two, at least a year and a half ago, in what looked like a final form. I sort of watched a bit of a demo then, had previously played it as a prototype. If you like Tokaido, you are going to like this one as well. I don't think it's going to massively change your opinion, so if you didn't like the old one, you won't like this one. But it is basically more mini games. So, you've got, instead of some of the old ones, you're maybe pulling things from a bag. You've got some interesting bits about ships, where it's like if you can get rid of them, you're not going to lose points at the end of the game. You're still building vistas. This is it looks like a prototype-ish image, but you're building these sort of creatures like the whale, whatever that you're seeing, rather than the vistas of the old, because it's much more about like fishing and on that fishing journey in this one. But yeah, really enjoyed this one, and I don't know whether for me it would replace Tokaido. It sits very much from my single play and watch a bit of another one. It sits very much as alongside it, so it would be interesting to see once played more, will it overtake it, will it replace it, or will actually it not be quite as good in the long run. Next up, we have another expansion. This is the Isle of Cats. Now, Isle of Cats is a brilliant polyomino tile placement game. Think Tetris shapes and stuff like that if you've not seen it. But with this sort of amazing Isle of Cats, cat sort of shapes and stuff. So that, like, the cats are laying down in a position, and that's what the polyomino is. And there's going to be Kittens and Beasts expansion. A way to get a previous game back to the table is never a bad thing in my eyes, and to be honest, it looks pretty awesome that they just fit straight in, so that there's some very different looking animals. There's a turtle, very different from a kitten, but then there looks to be like a bear with some kind of antlers, and then you have these really cute kittens, which I'm assuming it's going to be something to do with like maybe filling smaller gaps, or maybe when you've got so much of a certain colour family, you can get the kittens. I don't know how the kittens are going to interact with the size of families and stuff like that, but maybe it's just more points for everyone. But yeah, always interested in playing sort of an old game, getting a game back off the shelf is what I mean, and this expansion could be that for me this year. Arkeis, I think Arkeis, something like that. This is an interesting game. I'm just putting this on the list because it makes me interested just by looking and sort of kind of guessing how it's going to play. So it's a relatively thick box, but it comes with these effectively it comes with boxes inside boxes, and they add together to actually make the rooms of this dungeon. And I kind of like the fact that it's got like the walls, and it reminds me of some D&D terrain sort of thing, and like it's got these pouches, boxes, almost a bit like Charterstone or something like that, where you can save your components in it. It's got loads of different components, and it excites me, the fact that it is I think this is probably one of the best pictures because it's got everything in it. It's a dungeon crawlery sounding game, but the terrain isn't just flat, it's got the walls, so you've got this room and then you traverse to the next room and stuff. It's an interesting one. I'm going to try to play this. It's not top of my list, but it's just intriguing me. It's certainly one that I want to see at a convention, and then maybe play, but maybe not own. That's sort of where I'm at for this one. I couldn't not put CoraQuest on the list. It is a game that I think a lot of people in the industry want to give a go, because it's by Dan and Cora Hughes. They're a brilliant father-daughter combo, and they have made their own game. They kickstarted it. It all came out of lockdown. There's Cora with the game in front of her, and it is this sort of game which they started just out of a sort of an exercise in lockdown to do something, and it has turned into this sort of family weight dungeon crawler where tiles are turned over and there's monsters and stuff like that. There's not normally miniatures, but all the artwork is very like kid friendly, drawn by kids and families. And it looks fun. It looks like it's probably not going to be one that's going to stay sort of in my collection for a long period of time. But I want to play it. I want to experience it, because I think for like families out there, that could be, that that game that gets someone younger excited and playing a game that they can play that's got sort of hints and elements of other games. Next up, we have Tenpenny Parks, and now there's multiple reasons why this is on the list. Firstly, it's by Thunderworks Games, the people behind the likes of Cartographers, phenomenal game, and then this game has two of probably my favourite mechanics in it. It's got tile placement and worker placement. I love the idea of that. I love the fact when looking at the boards, you are really building out this park. It feels like a bar and park, but a carnival-y sort of themed one, and it looks like it's got that bit more going on. It looks like you can, expand your park a little bit at the sides. It looks like maybe trees or huts that you're building or there. Maybe you have to get rid of them or build over them, not quite sure. It's a combination of mechanics, basically. So yeah, set collection, tile placement, worker placement, that is, for me, a recipe for success, or at least I hope so. So Tenpenny Parks is a much hype game for 2022 for me. You may have seen on the channel I did a live stream, a playthrough of Slay the Spire, and the Slay the Spire board game is going to be coming out this year. Now, there's not too much on Board Game Geek about this, but it kind of just makes sense. Slay the Spire is a digital deck builder where you are slowly building up this deck. Each time you defeat a room which might have monsters or sort of options, every time you advance you're normally getting a new card for your deck, maybe a potion that you can use during the next fight and things like that, and it makes sense that it could be a board game. Now, I have some reservations. There's a lot of things in Slay the Spire that are done for you. You're not having to keep track of like health on dials or trackers or anything like that. It's just a number on the screen. You're not having to constantly shuffle your small deck. You would in real life. So I don't know how they're going to do some of the aspects, but I'm excited to see how they do it and certainly give this one a go, because Slay the Spire I spent many hours playing, and if they can capture the core fun of the game of this sort of run through, trying to get as far, trying to defeat that final boss, then on to the next where there's a bigger boss and stuff like that, till you get to the final third act. If they can capture that and it doesn't go on too long and there's not too much admin, it could be a phenomenal deck builder, and probably a solo or co-op one as well. So I'm not normally too hyped on solo games, but this is one I would certainly try. Let's Make a Bus Route is a game that has got a lot of hype from the likes of Z Garcia and such, and Get On Board London, or New York and London, is going to be sort of from Yellow, this basically new edition. So it's got to go on the list for me because I've never played the original, and I kind of just like the idea of making routes. It's something that not too many board games do well, and it's already basically a proven game. I just want to get my hands on it. I really like the fact that you have this board, and you are trying to link it up. You're building out the routes. Yeah, like I say, there's not too much I can say about this. It's already known to be a fun game. In terms of, this is almost like a spin-off, like a sequel-ish re-theming of the original. So hopefully that means it can't go wrong. But I want to give this one a go because I've not played the bus route version. So earlier in the list I had an expansion for Isle of Cats. Well, this is the Isle of Cats Explore and Draw, which, as you may guess from the name, is a flip and write game. So it looks, because of the pens at least, it looks like they're going to come with sort of wipeable boards. Any flip and write, roll and write with that, just for me, has that premium feel. So loved that straight away. And again, yes, it's not getting Isle of Cats off the shelf, but it is sort of at least getting me back in and playing that sort of family, the Isle of Cats family, the series of games. I loved the way that it works with the drafting and then tile placement of Isle of Cats, and I could see, you know, the interest of this card's flipped over and everyone's using the same one working very well because it is polyomino shapes, tiles. In this case, not tiles, you're just sketching them in. You're exploring and drawing. So, yep, very much looking forward to this one. If you hadn't guessed from the rest of the list, I am slightly hyped for Marvel-related things, rightly or wrongly. Now, this doesn't come out this year, but it is going to be kickstarted this year, so I couldn't not say what is effectively Marvel Zombicide, even though it's called Marvel Zombies. Now, some of the pictures here, I don't paint my minis. I'd love to. I wish I could make them look as good as these pictures. But even without the painting, I think it's going to be a very fun game. It seems to have some tweaks and additions. I love Zombicide just for the sheer sort of chaos a bit almost of what is going on. You're trying to burst through all of these, and the fact that some of the superheroes that we know and love can then be zombies, I think that is a pretty awesome thing. Like here, that's Captain America as a zombie. Now, that means there's going to be a tweak to the system that I'm very excited about. Obviously, I know that's not coming out this year, so I will just mention the Undead or Alive Zombicide. Now, I probably won't be getting this one, but I would like to give it a go. A Western theme. Let's try and flick through to see if we can get some pictures. A Western theme. I kind of just like the idea. It fits the rest. You know, they've gone through medieval, they've gone through modern, they've gone through sci-fi, and yeah, I think the theme, I love the idea of like the Gatling gun and stuff. We're not getting any pictures of a board here, which is there we go. It just makes sense. The fact there's a train track with an exit and things like that, it all just kind of makes sense. You know, you could see how the Zombicide system would work when you're trying to get from one place, do some objectives and get out on the train track at the other side. It feels like it could be westerned, a zombie western. So that's two Zombicides in one. I'm probably more excited for Marvel, but I'd like to give this sort of western version a go too. Next up is a game that, well, to be honest, it was the box art alone that made it just jump out of the page at me. Tiwanaku. I'm going to say that's not how it's pronounced, but it's probably close enough for me. I'm not going to get any closer. And the box art alone just looks stunning. And then you start looking at the board, and it's got some interestingness to it. So it's grid movement, there's some deduction in there. It's not at all what I thought when I first saw the box art to the actual board. I was a little bit shocked, to be honest. You look at the board and the box and you're thinking, wow, this is a really pretty game. And you kind of look at the board and you're like, well, it's colourful, but that it's only colourful. It's not really as glorious and as sort of eye-catching. It looks much more like a standard kind of game than the sort of the beautiful artwork of the box made me think it might be. But the idea of grid movement and deduction, that, you know, I do enjoy some deduction games. Some are a bit of a miss for me, and some are a bit of a hit. So I'm interested. This is one that I will play hopefully this year, maybe at a convention or something, and then hopefully it will be fantastic. Recently I played Tiwanaku for the first time. So the idea that there is another game with that name that many people can pronounce, founders of Tiwanaku, the tile laying game. I really enjoy tile laying, if you hadn't guessed from other reviews and even this video that I've put out. Tiwanaku had a lot of things going on. There was lots of different tracks. You know, you've got to do this at the right time, trying to send your dice. Now, some of that's not going to be there, but from the looks of it, it looks like there's a decent chunk going on here in terms of different tiles to build, a central it looks like sort of the central pyramid-y bit still there, and then it looks like there are a lot of icons still, so you're probably still going to be doing this to then have enough cocoa to do that, and so on and so on. And it'll be interesting to see how they sort of streamline some elements, because I don't think it can be as heavy, streamline some bits, and just, then does the flavour really still stick there? Tile laying though, so it's on the list, and it's more of an intriguing one. See where they go with this one. We're nearly through the list, and then this game caught my eye with artwork from Vincent Detrate. I think that's going to catch many people's eyes. Distant Suns. Now, this doesn't sound necessarily like what you would expect, almost like a roll and write or a flip and write pad to look like, but it's like a grid exploration almost, from what I can tell. Everyone's going to be writing the same shapes and trying to go across as much of it as possible. I like the idea that they are, you're maybe trying to link things up. It really worked in Trails of Takuna, I think it was. There's a review on the channel for that. Really enjoyed that one, which was about linking these bits and pieces up around. And it looks like you're actually using the grid movements to draw the shapes rather than anything else. So, very interested to see more about this one, to be honest. I can't tell you too much about it because there's not too much there. But the artwork drew me in, and then the look of the game sort of kept me interested. And last but not least, on the 22 is a game that doesn't have an image. Really helpful, I know, but it is, first of all, a game from Plan B Games, and it's got art from Chris Quilliams, which they work very much together really well. Now, it's a matching game, it's the mechanisms, and you're trying to construct the Great Stone Tower to guide the merchants to their yaks in the Himalayas. Loving the sound of the theme of yak, and it's a Plan B game. I know that doesn't guarantee it, but I really do find a lot of the Plan B ones really easy to hit the table. They're really easy to teach. The component quality is normally really high. And let's just have a look. The designer, I don't know either of those two, so I can't say one way or the other, but I'm intrigued. They pick up normally phenomenal games, and I do at least rate them as good games. Some of them are exceedingly good. So Yak, don't know much about it. Literally, it's popped on like the very bottom of the 2022 list, but I'm excited. There is one extra little thing that I'd add to the bottom of this list that was announced seemingly by Floodgate at least a year ago, that they were going to, or at least looking into doing, Sagrada Legacy. Not heard anything about that, but if that happens this year, that would make this list. So, super caveat, if that's a thing, it's on the list too. And, well, that about wraps it up. A long video, just talking through some games I'm really excited about. It looks like there's a few hundred already on Board Game Geek. So, narrowing it down to 22-ish. That was quite hard, but I hope you've enjoyed. Hope you found out about some new games. What have I missed, though? Is there some spectacular looking game that, has just completely flown past me? Well, put it in the put it in the comment section below so I can go and check it out. Because, I have definitely missed some gems, and hopefully we can all find them together. Until next time, have a great day gaming, and I'm Oliver East signing out.